Dr. Myron Avery was a Black American genius, renowned across academic circles for his groundbreaking research in oncology and molecular biology. Raised in a rough Chicago neighborhood, Myron clawed his way to the top with relentless focus and a deep desire to save lives. After years of quiet work in a private lab he built from grant money and personal sacrifice, he did the impossible. He discovered the cure for cancer. It wasn't a drug, it was a revolutionary nanotherapy, a microscopic army programmed to target and destroy malignant cells without harming healthy tissue. Clinical trials in secret had proven its success. Terminal patients walked again, laughed again, lived again. Myron called it Project Lazarus. But salvation came at a cost. The day he submitted a patent, he triggered alarms in boardrooms across the world. Billion-dollar empires built on chemotherapy, radiation, and lifelong treatments began to tremble. CEOs, lobbyists, and shadowy think tanks gathered in secret. They couldn't allow Myron's cure to go public. It would collapse their monopolies. Soon after, his lab was broken into. His assistants began to disappear. Then came the email: "Withdraw your patent or you die." But Myron wasn't built to back down. The final straw came when his mentor, Dr. Franklin Rowe, was found dead in a staged suicide. That night, Myron went dark. He encrypted his research, vanished from the grid, and began preparing for war. Unknown to most, Myron was a former combat medic in the US Army, and he hadn't forgotten how to survive. He tracked the threat back to a conglomerate of pharmaceutical firms, using shell companies to hire a notorious Russian assassin group called Volk. Led by a psychotic ex-FSB operative named Arkady Malenkov, the group had one mission: erase Myron from the planet. They didn't expect Myron to fight back. Using old contacts in the military and help from an underground hacker collective who believed in his cause, Myron turned the tables. He began dismantling the network, exposing secret documents, unleashing patient testimonies, and even blackmailing corrupt senators who were on Big Pharma's payroll. The final showdown happened in Geneva, where Myron planned to leak Project Lazarus at a global medical summit. Arkady and his elite squad ambushed him in the streets. It was a brutal battle of wit, tech, and raw survival instinct. But Myron survived. Barely. He released the research through an anonymous data dump. The world erupted. Pharmaceutical stocks collapsed. Investigations opened. Arrests were made. But Myron couldn't go home. He became a ghost, hunted by what was left of the corrupt elite, revered by millions as a legend. They thought killing him would end the cure. But Myron knew the truth. Once a cure is known, it can't be unknown. Future expansion arcs, the clone vault. Myron discovers that a biotech firm is using stolen samples of Lazarus to create a weaponized version. Arkady's revenge. Arkady escapes custody and forms a new alliance with rogue agents to hunt Myron and re-seize control. The underground network. Myron trains a team of young scientists in secret while traveling the world under different identities. Cure wars. As countries battle over access to Lazarus, Myron must navigate global politics to ensure it reaches the people, not just the powerful. The lights in Dr. Myron Avery's lab buzzed faintly as he leaned over a microscope, eyes red-rimmed, fingers trembling from a lack of sleep and an overload of adrenaline. The nanobots were moving, elegant, microscopic machines constructed from self-assembling proteins. On the screen, they swarmed a cancer cell like bees around a queen, neutralizing it, leaving healthy cells untouched. He'd done it. The cure wasn't theoretical anymore. Project Lazarus worked. He sank into his chair, heart pounding. 10 years of lost sleep, failed trials, defunded grants, and whispered threats had led to this moment. Somewhere deep in his chest, a flicker of pride sparked. Not for himself, but for his mother, who died of pancreatic cancer when he was 15. For every patient he had watched fade while treatments drained their dignity and hope, He uploaded the data to an encrypted drive and initiated the patent protocol through a secure government medical server. It was late, 2:14 a.m. A storm rumbled in the distance. He didn't sleep that night. 3 days later, the sky fell. The warning came in the form of a burned-out hard drive mailed to his office. Inside the shattered casing was a note written in Russian and English. "Withdraw, or watch everyone you love disappear." He knew the game, knew it too well. In a past life, Myron served as a medic in Kandahar, patching up soldiers in the middle of firefights, dodging bullets while carrying bodies. He'd seen what desperate people were capable of. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was business. Billion-dollar business. He opened a private channel and pinged his old army contact, Rico James, now a cybersecurity expert, running an underground network of whistleblowers and hackers. Within hours, Rico confirmed it. Myron's name was on a list, a death list. The culprits weren't just a single company. They were an alliance of pharmaceutical giants who had created a covert coalition called the Consortia. Together, they'd funneled trillions into cancer treatments. A cure would collapse their empire overnight. They'd hired the worst of the worst to kill him. Folk, a Russian assassin unit specializing in black ops elimination. Their leader, Arkady Malenkov, had a reputation for surgical strikes and making people vanish without a trace. But Myron wouldn't be one of them. He wiped his lab servers clean, burned his notes, transferred the nanotech research to a dozen secure backups, each one programmed to upload if he didn't enter a code every 48 hours. Then he disappeared. No one knew where he went, not his colleagues, not the press, not even Rico. But Myron didn't go into hiding. He went underground, deeper than most knew existed. Using old military favors and Rico's network, he began building a counter-strike plan. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was war. Weeks passed. The Consortia sent operatives to his known associates. Franklin Rowe, his mentor, was found dead, his body cold, a gun in his hand. Suicide, they said. But Myron knew better. Franklin was left-handed. The gun was in his right. That night, Myron held the encrypted drive in his hands. The last clean copy of Project Lazarus sat inside. He stared at it for hours before deciding. He would take it to Geneva, the World Medical Summit. Let them kill him in the open if they dared, but he would not be silenced in the dark. Geneva. The snow fell gently over the city, masking its cold secrets. Myron moved through the summit crowd with calculated ease, a duffel slung over his shoulder, coat zipped to his neck. Inside the duffel, a tablet loaded with the Lazarus protocol, ready to stream the cure live to every medical institution in the world. He approached the auditorium. Then, chaos. Gunshots cracked, screams echoed. 2 guards dropped near the entrance. A black SUV pulled onto the curb, engine still running. The doors burst open. Arkady Malenkov stepped out, his ice-blue eyes locked on Myron. "Myron Avery," he said, smirking. "You should have stayed dead." But Myron didn't flinch. He dropped the bag, spun behind a pillar, and drew a concealed weapon. Military issued, modified for urban combat. Gunfire tore through the lobby. He rolled across the marble floor, blasting 2 of Arkady's men before slipping into the hall. People scattered. Security scrambled. He ran to the stage, blood on his hands, glass in his side. But he made it. With trembling fingers, he activated the stream. "My name is Dr. Myron Avery," he said into the mic, voice booming. "And I've brought the cure to cancer." A sniper's shot cracked the glass above him, but it was too late. The Lazarus protocol went live, replicated, cloned, sent into the cloud, downloaded by thousands in real time. Myron dropped to one knee, bleeding, smiling. He had won the battle. But the war had just begun. Chapter 2, Ghost Protocol. Snow mixed with blood on the marble floor of the Geneva Summit Hall. Alarms screamed, delegates ducked under tables, and Myron's breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. The bullet that grazed his ribs burned like fire, but the pain was distant. He was alive, and more importantly, Project Lazarus was free. He tore a strip from his shirt, pressed it against the wound, and staggered off the stage. Security swarmed the entrance. Sirens howled from approaching vehicles. In minutes, police and medics would be all over the place. Too many eyes. Too much heat. He needed to vanish. Arkady wouldn't let him walk away twice. Myron slipped into the maintenance tunnels beneath the summit hall, places few knew existed. He followed emergency schematics Rico had uploaded to his watch weeks ago. Every step was a risk. Every echo in the dark could be death. Meanwhile, Arkady Malenkov stood calmly outside the summit building, brushing snow off his coat. Two of his men were dead, but he didn't blink. He lit a cigarette, exhaled, then tapped an earpiece. "He's heading underground," he said in Russian. "Lock down the west exits. He's bleeding. He won't get far." Myron emerged into a narrow alleyway behind the summit hall, swaying slightly. A civilian van idled across the street. He stumbled toward it. The door flung open. A woman with braided hair and dark eyes pulled him in. "You're late," she said. Myron blinked. "You're not Rico." "I'm Layla. Rico's in Berlin. I'm your new guardian angel." She hit the gas and the van peeled away just as bullets punched through the rear windshield. Layla was ex-MI6, now part of a global shadow group known only as The Divide. Activists, hackers, and rogue agents who protected whistleblowers and threatened the balance of power from the inside. They'd been watching the Lazarus situation unfold for months. "You've become the most wanted man on Earth," Layla said, weaving through traffic. "Some governments want to protect you. Most want to dissect you." "Yeah," Myron muttered. "Tell me something new." They drove to an abandoned safe house in the Swiss countryside. There, Myron collapsed. Layla treated the wound and he slept for 14 straight hours. When he woke, the world had changed. Hospitals in South Africa, India, and Brazil had already begun early-stage replication. Scientists were hailing it as the cure of the century. Protesters flooded the streets outside pharmaceutical HQs. News outlets couldn't keep up. But there was a darker side. The consortia had unleashed a new campaign: discredit Myron. They called the research fraudulent, claimed he was a military experiment gone rogue. One outlet even accused him of bioterrorism. In the chaos, countries began restricting access to the Lazarus Protocol, calling for further evaluation. Arkady's mission changed. Now he wasn't just ordered to kill Myron. He was tasked with recovering the source code. Layla entered the room with fresh intel. "They're calling it Operation Eclipse," she said. "They want to wipe every trace of your work and neutralize anyone who's seen the data firsthand." And Arkady? "Still hunting. He has US support now, black budget money, rogue units." Myron stood, slow but steady. "Then we go on the offensive." Layla raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're ready for that?" Myron looked her in the eyes. "I didn't come this far to run." Back in Moscow, Arkady Malenkov received a file. Inside, satellite images of a remote compound in Uganda, one of the locations now rumored to house Myron's prototype lab. He smiled. "I'm coming, Doctor." The air was thick with humidity as the sun dipped below the jungle horizon. Deep in the remote hills of western Uganda, hidden behind overgrown vines and a decaying colonial-era outpost, stood a high-tech underground facility, one of the last remaining Lazarus prototype labs. Myron had it built in secret during the early days of development, using untraceable funds and the help of an old friend, Professor Kato Nsubuga, a brilliant Ugandan virologist with ties to the local resistance. It was now the only place in the world where a full backup of Project Lazarus existed in physical form. Myron arrived by nightfall, stepping out of a battered prop plane with Layla by his side. The runway was little more than dirt and hope, lit by solar-powered lamps. Armed guards, loyal to Kato and recruited from anti-cartel militias, stood at the perimeter. "Welcome to the Ark," Kato said, smiling with tired eyes. "Let's hope we built it strong enough." Inside the facility, the prototype nanobots were kept in cryo chambers beneath biometric locks. The lab was modest but advanced, part lab, part fortress. Myron checked the integrity of the stored code, running diagnostics while Kato updated him on the political climate. "Several African nations want access to the Lazarus tech," Kato said, "but pressure from the consortia has already begun. They're bribing ministers, threatening leaders." "We'll release it from here," Myron said. "This time to the people. No patents, no politics, just the cure." Layla stepped in, frowning. Satellite feeds just pinged movement. A private military jet landed in Nairobi under a shell company tied to Arkady. Myron clenched his jaw. He found us. The jungle was alive with insects, unaware that death had arrived. Arkady Malenkov and a dozen black-clad mercenaries, armed with suppressed rifles, infrared scopes, and advanced drone support, moved like shadows. Their mission: breach the Ark, seize the Lazarus prototype, kill everyone inside. They didn't expect the resistance. As Arkady's team closed in, hidden claymores shredded the vanguard. Gunfire cracked through the trees. Myron's guards, once local fighters, held the line with surprising skill. Inside the lab, Myron and Kato worked furiously, preparing a quantum burst transmitter. Their plan: upload Project Lazarus to an independent African mesh net, bypassing global servers completely. "We've got 5 minutes," Myron said. "That's all I need." Layla covered the hallway, trading fire with invaders. Smoke and sparks filled the air. She reloaded, eyes sharp. Then, Arkady burst through the far side of the lab. He moved like a ghost, killing with precision. 2 guards dropped. Layla fired, grazing his shoulder, but he advanced. Myron stood between Arkady and the cryo chamber. "You lost," Myron said, raising a pistol. Arkady smirked. "So have you. We'll just wipe it again." "It never ends." "I know," Myron said, "but this time I made a copy you'll never find." He hit the final key. The transmitter lit up. In that moment, Project Lazarus escaped into the wild, uploaded to hundreds of independent networks, clinics, and local hospitals across the developing world. It was unstoppable now. Arkady lunged. They fought hand to hand, brutal and close. Myron, injured but fueled by fury, fought like a man with nothing left to lose. He managed to drive Arkady back with a makeshift stun baton Kato tossed him. Layla fired a shot into Arkady's leg. The mercenary screamed, stumbling. Sirens outside blared. The Ugandan army had arrived, tipped off by Kato's political contacts. The jungle lit up with rotor blades and shouting soldiers. Arkady escaped into the darkness, wounded and seething. The lab was destroyed in the battle, but the mission was complete. The cure was free. Myron sat beside the wreckage, a bandage over his arm, watching the sun rise over the hills. Layla sat beside him, cleaning her weapon. Kato sipped tea on a broken crate. "You just changed the world, brother." Myron smiled faintly. "Let's hope it survives it." Months passed. Though Project Lazarus had gone public, the war wasn't over. Big Pharma may have lost the battle, but the consortia still had deep pockets and powerful allies. With Arkady Malenkov's failed raid in Uganda, they went underground and re-emerged with a far more sinister plan: the Retaliation Protocol. Using fragments of the Lazarus nanotech retrieved during the skirmish, they partnered with Helix Corps, a rogue American biotech giant. Their aim: engineer a reverse cure, a mutated form of Lazarus that would re-trigger cancer growth in already treated patients. It was a desperate move, but if successful, it would destroy public trust in Myron's cure forever. Arkady, now with a bionic leg and a personal vendetta, led the new offensive. Myron sat at a makeshift command table surrounded by allies: Layla, Professor Kato, Rico, patched in via satellite, and new recruits from the Divide. Charts and holograms filled the air, pinpointing labs and Helix Corps facilities around the globe. This reverse strain, codenamed Project Hydra, is being developed at a black site in Iceland, Layla said. They're days away from releasing it through medical trial programs disguised as cancer relapse studies. Poison wrapped in hope, Kato muttered. Myron stood. Then we destroy it. All of it, buried beneath frozen cliffs and volcanic stone. The Helix Corps compound was a fortress. Armed drones, heat sensors, private security, and the last of Arkady's elite force stood guard over what could be the greatest threat to humanity yet. But they didn't know who they were up against. Myron's team infiltrated by night, using storm cover and military-grade stealth tech. Rico shut down external communications while Layla took out patrols with precision. Kato guided the virus purge sequence from a remote terminal. Inside the lab, Myron found it. Project Hydra, a twisted perversion of his life's work. His hands shook with fury as he read the chemical structure. It was designed to target poor, underprivileged populations first. They wanted to punish the people who needed the cure most, he whispered. Just then, Arkady appeared. You never should have come here, Doctor, he said, stepping from the shadows with a fresh scar across his cheek. You had your moment, but this is the new order. This is genocide, Myron said, drawing his weapon. Genocide pays well, Arkady growled, lunging. Oh, they clashed again, this time in the heart of the lab. Their fight was vicious, metal clashing against bone, fists on fire. But Myron wasn't the same man Arkady met in Geneva. He was stronger, focused. He pinned Arkady against the cryo chamber and whispered, "This ends now." And with one final move, he injected Arkady with a concentrated dose of Lazarus, rewritten to neutralize all cancer and strengthen cell repair. Arkady screamed as his body seized, overwhelmed by a rush of cellular correction. He collapsed, alive but defeated. The hate burned out of him. You're cured, Myron said, but you'll never hurt anyone again. The lab exploded behind them as the team escaped into the snow, helicopters arriving to evacuate them. The world never knew how close it came to catastrophe. The world changed. With the Hydra threat neutralized and Arkady in an undisclosed medical facility under global surveillance, Project Lazarus finally reached every corner of the planet. Myron, through an open-source medical foundation, ensured the cure would remain free and accessible. He traveled from slums in Mumbai to clinics in Detroit, from refugee camps in Gaza to mountaintop villages in Peru, training doctors, spreading hope. Cancer death rates plummeted. Treatments became preventative. For the first time in human history, the disease that took millions had met its match. At a press conference in Nairobi, standing beside Layla and Kato, Myron addressed the world. I didn't do this to be famous. I did it because we deserve to live. All of us. No price tag, no gatekeepers, just life. Cheers roared, tears flowed. Somewhere quietly, a young girl in Brazil rang a bell after her final treatment. In Ghana, a boy once given 6 months to live ran through a soccer field again. And in the ruins of corporate towers once ruled by greed, the world remembered one man, Dr. Myron Avery, the man who cured cancer and refused to let anyone steal that miracle.